So maybe, Norbit, let's start with you. Just give us a synopsis of your role within the Department of Public Enterprises and how your cloud strategy actually ties in with the overall digital transformation strategy.
I am the new or recently added addition to Public Enterprises as the CIO there. So, yeah, cloud and government, the two words almost sometimes don't go together. And that's kind of been part of the journey that we've been looking at. For the Department of Public Enterprises, I think our trajectory in terms of cloud has been a very rapid one. And by no means can I call myself the savior of the department, because I'm not. But joining the department recently, in the last 2-3 months, a lot of our infrastructure has still been based on-prem. I told somebody earlier today as well, is it's now 2.5 months that I've been there. I had my second main week, and then all hell broke loose the next week and the week thereafter. One such thing is the little animal we call CETA that went down the day before the State of the Nation address, and it just caused pandemonium everywhere. But with that said, we had a situation in which our infrastructure was not literally doing what I wanted it to do. And being the leader on the block, gave instruction to my team to start migration to moving all of our infrastructure to the cloud. And we mentioned names and so forth, but ultimately within a span of literally a month, we migrated all of our services into cloud-based services. And with that said, we are a fairly small department, but our portfolio is not large, because we have a number of enterprises. And the moment I told people that I'm from public enterprises, the first thing I ask is about this. I can't tell you about Scrum because I'm not the CIO there. But the reality is that in terms of cloud and its integration and our services to be integrated, cloud becomes a primary component for us to be able to share data, to be able to share services across our entire enterprise component. And I think the reality there is that ultimately, even though the department is not a direct customer-facing department, its enterprises are. And the transition to cloud becomes vital in terms of how we integrate our services. That will become useful to the citizen. And that is where our journey is on at this moment.
Absolutely. Useful to the citizen. I love that. So your department is actually tasked with unlocking growth within state-owned companies in South Africa. So give us some case studies of how cloud has actually enabled your department to fulfill that mission in an innovative way.
Again, being the new kid on the block in public enterprises, we are not, as I said, a direct citizen-facing service. Speeches thing because I have one cup of coffee today. But ultimately, within our enterprises, I think there's been implementation of cloud-based services. If we were to look at one, is for instance within the Eskom group, alerts on power outages became one of those services that we are speaking about. If I am to reflect perhaps on a slightly different role that I had in my previous department as well, we had implemented a number of cloud-based services for access to SMEs and services that we had. So in terms of looking ahead, we obviously need to provide some sense and some semblance of what is going on across the entire value chain within the public enterprises environment itself. And that includes how Eskom, for instance, will benefit and need to interact with Transnet and Denel with another entity, and so it goes on. And that will be part of the digital journey across the entire portfolio that we'll be looking at in the future in terms of providing the services that we need to provide adequately.
Well, speaking of the services that you need to provide adequately, we'll come back to you there and talk a little bit more about the challenges and the perils involved in that. But Kutlwano, let's come to you. Now, you are with the South African Local Government Association, overseeing over 200 municipalities. I don't want your job. So just please expand on the cloud strategies that your organization is working on and your broader mission in ensuring that innovation is at the heart of service delivery.
Thanks, Sibahle. Good morning, colleagues. Yes, I'm from Kutlwano Chaba. I'm the Chief Digital Officer at SALGA. And in summary, we've just been tasked with providing the digital agenda for local government or 257 municipalities, including metros, districts, and local municipalities. And I actually had service looking after the internal environment, but also for the overall local government digital strategy and cloud and digitalization agenda. And how we've done that is in firstly developing a digital framework for local government, how to adopt and how to make sense of the opportunities that are brought by cloud, but also guide the different municipalities in the different maturity levels, in basically knowing where to start and driving their roadmaps in terms of what to do next in enabling the technologies that can indirectly and directly influence how the municipality delivers services. So we've developed a framework that looks at the infrastructure, the platforms that are required, the applications that are required, the legislative framework that enables and also impedes making this happen, looking at the people requirements from a skills point of view, both the technical skills from the technical colleagues that are in IT, but also the user technical skills that are required to consume those solutions. But all that we framed in such a way that all the work that's done responds to the citizen experience requirements, also speaks to the internal process efficiency and optimization requirements, and so forth. And then thereafter, we look at a number of use cases that are critical to make service delivery happen, and how the different cloud offerings and technology offerings can make that happen. So in that sense, we've kind of developed 9 of the program areas in terms of smart infrastructure, connected citizens, connected employees, smart buildings and smart homes, going paperless, generating new services, high automation, integration, and of course, being data-driven local government, more on the analytics side and so forth. So that sort of sums up our program and what we're doing in that sense. From an execution and supporting municipalities, we have got 4 programs that looked at one, accelerating broadband rollout. Why? Because that enables anything else that we require for cloud adoption and making the services available to citizens. So we do that from a legislative point of view, lobbying point of view, but also working with industry in terms of the operators that roll out this infrastructure. But the others are in helping municipalities achieve better levels of digital maturity from policies, governance, skills, digital strategies that we help them with, but also looking at the gap in terms of what processes are manual and to what extent are systems used to automate those processes and use cases. We call that product maturity. And then we have established what we call a digital factory that then prioritizes the right solutions that are required to address that product maturity level. And of course, we look at data maturity. Again, to what extent are we using technology to support decision-making, planning, monitoring, and evaluation in local government? And again, develop solutions through the project paths to develop the right analytic programs, products, services that municipalities can use to address those use cases. So that's just what we do in a nutshell. But that's what we do.
Sounds like a massive job. So from what I hear you say, you're talking about how SALGA has both an internal strategy that is focused on public servants, and then you have external strategy focused on citizen service delivery. So let's dissect some of these projects. Just give us a few case studies, particularly as far as service delivery is concerned. Tell us about how you deliver these innovations, which in turn add a lot of value to citizens.
So I think a quick one will speak to that number 2 that I mentioned, connected citizenry. One problem statement, which is how we're driven, problem statement is that on average you see each municipality going on a citizen engagement platform that they require to engage with their local citizens. And each of them spend on average 4 million getting such applications or such apps. And if you look at what local government does, we can liken it to like a ShopRite checklist. Right? It's one company with different branches, but we all do the same thing. All municipalities do the same thing and provide the same services. And there's no need why we should have common approaches, common applications, and common citizen-facing systems that are similar and shared. Right? And cloud provides that kind of opportunity. And what we've done then is actually build almost a standardized citizen-facing app that can be plugged into by municipalities where they just manage the content and whatever else they need to have in there. But people like yourself who've got multiple properties in many municipalities don't have to download an app for every single municipality for which you have an account with. But then you can just install one single app and engage with the municipality in various things that we have. So that's the one. The other is in assisting municipalities with planning, monitoring, strategy, and evaluation. They've got a business plan that's called an IDP, and we built again a standard solution that we actually co-created with a partner that is now available to municipalities to manage the whole IDP process, including performance auditing and risk management as well. So again, what we're driven by is something that's in the Municipal Systems Act that says, local government must seek to develop common approaches, for the needs of local government as a distinct sphere of government, and that's what we're trying to do. It's almost like someone wrote that ad was thinking about what cloud is going to bring in the future, because the cloud enables that common approaches, common platforms, and standardizing what we need to do as a sector. But also from an internal and risk management point of view, we've also seen from our assessment that we've done with municipalities a gap in how we do business continuity backups and disaster recovery as well, where we actually done some pilots as well with a partner who's sponsoring this event to look at how we can do backup, business continuity, and DR as a service. Again, as a shared service that's provided for local governments, and of course it promises a lot of other cost benefits and so forth. So those are just some of the municipal facing and citizen facing areas that we're doing. Lastly, we've got a data as a service offering as well, where we assist municipalities with their data analytic capabilities that they need. Again, they don't have the skills internally, the capability, but a team of scientists and engineers that are helping with that, and we build a number of platforms that enable municipalities to make sense of how well they're doing, how bad they're doing, what could go wrong, what could go right, so they could make decisions quickly and focus on things that are red and yellow and not things that are green and so forth. So that's also what we're doing.
Well, I like what you touched on, not having sufficient skills internally, and that's an important issue that we'll come back to as part of our exploration of some of the challenges that government departments are going through. So that's definitely a point that we need to revisit shortly. Before we go to you, Rashika, let me just remind our audience of our Twitter handles. Our Twitter handle for ITWeb, that's ITWeb, and then our events team, it's ITWeb_events. So feel free to tag us in those tweets, whatever you want to say, hopefully positive things about this event and some of the discussions we're having. So Rashika, let's come to you. AWS is playing quite an important role in helping South African public sector organizations pioneer solutions that can actually tackle some of the most pertinent issues. So tell us about your role and your experience in enabling some of these amazing innovations that we've heard about this morning.
Thank you so much. So yes, we have a lot of innovations, and one of them is a citizen engagement platform as well. It's one of the largest in South Africa that we have developed, and very similar to what Kutlwano has done. But in addition to that, I mean, if you look at many of the challenges that are happening in South Africa right now, particularly in public enterprise, let's look at one of them that was in the media most recently, a bank. A state bank that had many challenges that we know about, and it was as a result of cybersecurity challenge that was costing the company 18 million rand a month. You calculate that over a year, that's almost 220 million rand. And we went in there, and over a week, we helped them to get onto cloud, and now all that is eradicated. All the fraudulent activities of the cybersecurity challenges and hacks are all eradicated, and we're saving that money. That 220 million rand a year is now going to the right people. And that's the kind of innovation and security that you get with AWS. And there's a number of other innovations. I mean, on the healthcare front, we have, for instance, we have a customer that we supported, Hyrax Biosciences. I don't know if you know the story, but back in 2021, when the Omicron virus came out, everybody accused South Africa that the Omicron virus was the variant that started here, and they wanted to shut us down again, and that would have impacted our economy and so on. But essentially, through Hyrax Biosciences, a customer of ours that's all in on AWS, and through our solutions that afford machine learning and analytics and so on. It was actually this company that discovered that the Omicron virus actually exists, and it was only South Africa that actually communicated it to the rest of the world. Not that it started here, but communicated it for the first time to the rest of the world. It was actually started in Netherlands and Denmark and so on. So when we say we don't have skills in South Africa, we must take that with a pinch of salt, because those kind of innovations happen right here in South Africa on platforms such as AWS. Yes, sure, we have a number of youth that we need to scale up, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on in terms of scaling. So I'll leave that for a little bit later. But when we talk about innovation, we're saying that AWS was started right here by South Africans in South Africa in 2006. Hyrex Biosciences is a South African company using AWS here, found out the Omicron virus. There's a number of other innovations that have been found. From a university perspective, when COVID hit, the University of Wits, for instance, was the first university that went in and transformed the entire learner system into a learner management system on the cloud. And they were able to continue undisrupted, not disrupted at all. So those are the kind of innovations that cloud brings to organizations.
Wow, absolutely. Great job you SWS are doing. And earlier on, you spoke about how your company supports over 6,000 governments globally. So I want us to touch also on the pandemic. Let's talk a little bit about that and just find out how COVID-19 actually helped South African government accelerate its e-strategy and assist citizens gain access to public service. We saw and we heard a lot about how the healthcare and SME grant applications were made possible via online portals. We saw the schooling system being thrust into a new digital world. Let's talk about your observation on the important role of cloud in enabling those services.
Thank you so much. So that's a great question. So in terms of one of the solutions that was implemented, it was a citizen engagement platform again. And SASA used the citizen engagement platform to service 15 million South Africans to provide for them social grants for if they lost their jobs or they were in financial distress. And that was all on the cloud. So when a citizen was supposed to register for this, normally they would go to a home affairs and stand in the queues for endless amount of time. And you couldn't do that during COVID, right? So now there was a platform available that you could do it all online. You could be verified online that you do actually exist, and you could be processed through all the various systems and then paid. And this was made available through cloud technologies with AWS. So SASA actually used us for that. And then I did mention about Hyrex Biosciences. I mean, amazing innovation and finding out about the Omicron virus. There's a number of other healthcare solutions, healthcare institutions that we have helped to ensure that they can support patients and so on from a digitalization perspective.
Well, Norbit, let's come back to you. I know that in your previous role with the Ministry of Small Business Development, you actually played quite an important role in assisting thousands of small businesses apply for their COVID relief funds during South Africa's lockdown. Now, it's one thing just to be able to provide an efficient platform, and it's quite another to ensure that that platform runs when you have hundreds of small businesses applying per hour. That must have been a massive, massive role. Tell us about that.
Sure. I think at some point, I was mentioning earlier that I became the, support desk for most of SMEs in South Africa. They knew me by name. And the reason for that is that when we started the journey, when we went into lockdown in March 2020, the immediate challenge that we had is accessibility for SMEs to benefit from the programs that we have. And we partnered up with, we had a number of different partners, and around about the 27th of March, launched our online SME platform, and within the first, I think it was about 12 o'clock in the morning, between 12 and 7 that morning, it went from being up to being down. Just literally went down. It was from 0 to about 17,000 applications coming in. The system could not maintain that. We then went through alternative processes, and not surprisingly, AWS was there. And yes, be nice. No. We actually transferred that system into the AWS environment, upscaling, and literally had stability achieved within a few hours rather than the time frame that we would have expected it to do. What it did translate to was that the workload that it could maintain, could achieve, went from that 17,000 SMEs to within a week, we went from 17,000 to just 100,000 registrations. It allowed the SMEs to have access to our support systems that was built It also allowed them, and of course there's the one challenge that comes in, is that a lot of our SMEs are not IT inclined. They are not IT literate primarily, and Minister mentioned it earlier, is that should be one of our strategies going forward. But what was designed for the ability for anybody to utilize these systems. And we could achieve that quite rapidly in that regard. As I said, I became the IT support desk for SME South Africa as a whole. And getting calls at 12 o'clock at night saying that I can't click on this button, I don't know what it does.
Wow. So these businesses were calling you directly
yes.
in the middle of the night?
Indeed. As I said, I should be getting an active ministers.
And so how many calls did you get and how did you deal with it?
Look, I think the amount of calls coming in really varied. And 90% of the time, it was not as much as the system being problematic, but more so the understanding of what to do next. We should understand that at that time frame, in the middle of a pandemic, 90% of the time people are worried about how do I pay my bills tomorrow and so forth. So it's more the pandemonium behind, I just need to get funds, and therefore automatically everything else goes out of the window. With a simple click of one little drop-down list that you didn't check could be the difference between submitting and not submitting. That was really the volume of calls that came in. And again, it's back to the fact that we have a very large citizenry, but in our large citizenry, we also have a very big component of PC or let's call it technology. I don't want to use the term illiterate, but I don't know what the nicer word to use is. Challenge, fine, capable, incapable, whichever. But that is actually where our biggest challenge arose from. And also to say with that is keeping in mind that we have a very complex urban, I want to say SME representation, and at the same time we also have a very large and even greater environment where we have informal businesses and also rural businesses that need the same assistance. And this was the combination of those challenges coming in. Beneficially to us was that we could have rapid deployment, rapid challenges, or rather resolving issues quite quickly because it was no longer dependent on physical infrastructure, but being able to deploy to the cloud and literally resolve things within minutes and not days.
Wow. So that speaks really to the importance of having a solid disaster recovery plan in place, and most importantly, just avoiding downtime altogether if you can. Kutlwano, let's hear from you some of the challenges and pitfalls that government still has to overcome, particularly because you service so many municipalities. What are some of the challenges that you've had to encounter, perhaps even those that you hadn't initially expected?
I think probably quite related to some of the use cases that we had to enable in terms of being available anywhere, anytime for citizens. Also allowing citizens to now solve their own problems. So I'm also framing it from a solution point of view where we realize that no two citizens are created equal. Some have got access to internet, some still required to go to the municipalities' offices to actually engage with the service champion or customer service representative, and some don't look that they want everything available at the tip of their fingertips. So what we've seen is that some of the challenges that we face in local government are pretty elementary in terms of we're still very heavy on paper, very disparate and silo-driven in terms of we don't always know what one department is doing, and we normally ask municipal managers that if I call you in the morning and I ask you the status of your municipality, how many phone calls will you have to make to give us that answer? And that's also about data availability across the board, being able to have reports, understanding and making sense of the environment. So those are some of the challenges that we have. I don't want to talk about the skills part for now, but it's also understanding the value that technology can provide. And I think the minister also mentioned that a bit, where generally speaking, IT departments and municipalities, and probably some government departments as well, have been relegated to changing passwords, Zoom meetings and so forth, and being called at the middle of the night, right? No CL should be called at 12 a.m. For a user support thing. Right?
Well, I guess that's why they say that the one thing that keeps CIOs awake at night, and it's very few things, but definitely cybersecurity and keeping systems going is one of those.
Yeah, so it's about allowing understanding that there's more to the technology offering and the promise beyond just the infrastructure and the hardware. But also from a security point of view, that's one of the challenges we're facing. Probably now, every second, third week, the municipalities hit. When we look at the numbers from the last 18 months, so the security part is quite, it's that hectic. And some of them happened before we had the Cyber Crimes Act, so we didn't have to report, so we find out, by chance and so forth. So the cyber risk remains, but also just the digital literacy and the data fluency in terms of counsellors, politicians, knowing what to do, what's available, and what to demand from technology professionals as well. And of course, it expands to the citizenry as well. So that gap in terms of social digital dexterity remains a big thing as well. Because I can use a big word.
So every second week, a municipality has to battle one kind of cyber risk or another. So we'll come back to that topic there, talking about cybersecurity and finding out about how hyperscalers such as AWS are able to assist as far as ensuring a good cybersecurity and disaster recovery plan is in place. Well, unfortunately, that's where we'll have to leave it for this morning. We would have loved to spend more time, particularly to delve into some of these challenges and the resolutions to some of the challenges that you've spoken about. Thank you so much to our panelists for their invaluable discussion, talking about accelerating cloud in the public sector. Thank you so much to all our guests this morning. And if you feel free to chat to some of our panelists if you'd like to discuss some of these issues at length after the program. Once again, our panelists there, Kutlwano Chaba, the Chief Digital Officer of SALGA, Rashika Ramlal, who is a public sector country leader for AWS South Africa, as well as Norbit Williams, CIO for the Department of Public Enterprises. Thank you so much.